Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us this evening. It's the pleasure of the inaugural class of 22 to invite you all and have you all here this evening. Like Chip said, my name's Callie Johnson, Richard's daughter, I guess, if we're doing payback. And you can offer me your condolences later. I work with my family to run Bailey's General Store, or will run again Bailey's General Store, and we are currently operating the Island Store up on Captiva. Thank you all for your support. We love seeing you all. I miss running into you all at Bailey's, and I love running into you at the Island Store on Captiva. I want to talk to you this evening about a few things. First, about our leadership class, the inaugural Leadership SanCap class of 2022, a special group of people. And I was flattered and honored to be invited to learn amongst national and international CEOs as the nice girl from the island. But we all taught ourselves, or each other, something. I learned a lot from the people around me, and I learned about working together. It was basically a grown-up group project to put this together, and I really enjoyed making special connections that I never would have made working at Bailey's. Half the time people mistake me as the cashier, so it was incredibly meaningful to be stuck on a bus with a bunch of folks that had something to share with each other. I was able to provide a bit of island history. Other folks were able to provide information from around the country and around the world, and we all came together and we're excited to put the Volunteer Expo together with Dolly's help and a lot of folks' help. While we were planning on hosting the leadership class of 2023, we naively didn't realize we would be doing something very different in the 6 months after September 28th. So we put together an outstanding program. We were sourcing wonderful people from all over the island, and we look forward to doing that again in 2024. So we're really excited about that. I also want to talk to you quickly about the business community, because John's going to cover that. But I wanted to talk about harmony, which is in the vision statement for the city. Harmony between residents, businesses, nonprofits. We all know why Sanibel-Captiva are special and why we're all here. None of us could exist without each other, and we have a stronger voice together. I'd also like to introduce, yes, I am his boss, President of the Sanibel-Captiva Chamber, John Lai.
Thank you, boss. I appreciate that. If you didn't notice, I did bring her phone. That was part of my duties tonight. Good evening to all of you, and thank you all for allowing me to be a part of tonight. I'd like to thank the CFI Board of Directors. I'd like to thank SanCap Trust for their sponsorship. As a nonprofit CEO, I do understand the importance of sponsorships, and things like this don't happen, as Callie would say, on rainbows and sunshine. So thank you for that, SanCap Trust. I'd like to recognize Tam Pygott, who I believe is in the audience tonight. If you wouldn't mind standing, Tam, and being recognized. Wonderful. Tam is our Executive Director of the Lee County Visitor and Convention Bureau. She and her team not only do a phenomenal job in marketing our island and our destination, but they're very key in getting communications out to our islands and when we need to disperse it out on our behalf. All of you recognize the importance. All of you here tonight recognize the importance of a strong nonprofit community and the degree that volunteering provides a real connection and a sense of community and ownership, particularly here on Sanibel-Captiva Islands. As Callie mentioned, my name is John Lai. I'm the President and CEO of the Sanibel-Captiva Chamber of Commerce, and I have the best job in the world, even now. I've lived in Southwest Florida for 39 years. I proposed to my wife here on this causeway, married her at St. Michael's and All Angels, and had the reception right here at Big Arch 25 years ago. It didn't look at all like this. Probably why they had to tear it down afterwards. But since then, every major milestone that my family and I have celebrated have been on these islands. So while we don't live here, Sanibel is a place that feels most like home to all of us. Dolly gave me 5 minutes to give an update on the business community, and I'm already used 2, so I'm going to go ahead and get started on that. To help set the stage for this conversation, it's important to recognize that on the evening of September 27th, our chamber had over 540 open businesses on Sanibel-Captiva. Over 2,800 lodging units were in play at that time, and most of our members, we all silence our phone. That's a very important Amber Alert. And most of our members were on track to have a record year. We all know what happened on September 28th, so let's talk about where we are now. And if you don't remember, I know Jeff. Okay, who needs to silence that? As a business community, here are some facts currently. We have 18 retail stores that are open, 31 food and beverage operations. And I say operations because not all of them are operating in restaurants. 7 activity rentals, so bikes, mopeds, golf carts. 19 lodging unit options, which are in various stages of being open. So you may have a couple that are open with just 3 or 4 units. And we have more and more opening every week. So that is very optimistic. We have, including the vacation rentals, currently back online, we're sitting at approximately 180 lodging units, a far cry from the 2,800 we had 6 months ago. As an organization, the Chamber continues to work hard to accurately promote the destination and push visitors to our open members. We're doing that in a very responsible way. I'd like to, at this time, when we closed our doors on the 27th, we had 4 employees at the Chamber and 9 downstairs at the Visitor Center. Currently, we are operating with myself and 2 people. Jade and Aaron, if you're in the room, if you wouldn't mind standing up, because I think you deserve a round of applause as well. Thank you. Over the last 6 months, we have launched a mapping platform, Wander Maps and Navigation. I never ask people to do this while I'm speaking, but take out your phone, turn off that Amber Alert, and if you don't currently have the Wander Map app, just look that up in the App Store, or you can just go out to our table afterwards. We do have a QR code there. Download that map, tell all your friends about it. It will show you where every open business is on this island, give you their hours of operation, tell you what they are, and then when they need to change their hours, if they need to open more days or open longer hours, we know that's going to happen. We can change that very, very quickly. And so please make sure that that gets out. We've refreshed our homepage on our website to include more accurate data, more accurate photos, and feature frequently asked questions. Right now, our visitor center visitor center staff is averaging probably about 40 calls a day, and every one of them want to know relatively the same questions. We're grateful for the collaboration with CFI to quickly execute the design, procurement, and distribution of the feather signs that you all see dotted throughout the islands that show every open business where they are easily from the driver's perspective here on this island. We did that within 10 days. Through our collaboration with the Florida Restaurant Lodging Association, we are also going to be leading the charge on connecting the hospitality industry to the $7 million in grant money that Governor DeSantis has just earmarked for small businesses, $3 million of which will be distributed directly through the FRLA. And as most of you would know, our chamber and the FRLA have a very tight connection. And so we're going to be dedicating a staff member purely to that effort. This is great news. We hope to be opening, we will be opening our visitor center within the next 30 days, and we'll be staffing that. And I will have 5 confetti cannons just to one-up Jeff. When the time is right, we will leverage our online presence. We had 1.7 million website visits last year, and we have currently 93,000 social media follows to bring visitors back to our vacation paradise. But until then, our mission will be to continue to make sure that we do everything in our power to promote the prosperity of our island businesses that are open and continue to fight for the quality of life here on our islands. Hurricane Ian may have broken our stride, but as evidenced by the energy in this room tonight, it has not and it will not break our spirit. So once again, thank you all for being here tonight.
Thank you, John. That's good. They're opening the center. Nice applause. So the heart of the evening, in terms of a lot of people who came, is to hear Chauncey interview his dad and to interview David Mintz, who is the Captiva part of this story. So I'd like them to come out, and they're all mic'd up and ready to go. Chauncey is kind of the moderator of this panel, and I will say as they come out, Chauncey, welcome. Porter. Thank you, David. Marielle Porter's wife and Chauncey's mother is here. She was part of the Lure of the Islands, stopping traffic because the kids didn't want to ride their bikes in the traffic, and as Marielle's action, along with other women in the community at the time, are responsible for every inch of the 26 miles of bike trails that we have on the island. So. Thank you.
Well, good evening, everyone. It's really nice to be here. David, if you'll indulge me a minute, I'm going to ask Dad some questions more pertaining to Sanibel, and then we'll move over to Captiva.
He is your father.
He is my father. And we did this last year. We had a really nice talk, and I asked a bunch of questions. So I went back out and I sort of said, okay, I don't want to ask the same question. So I went and asked some of my friends. I was like, what would you like to hear my father answer? And so some of the things, I don't think you're going to touch any of these is my guess, but the JFK grassy knoll thing, is that, you don't want to go there? Have you ever been to Area 51?
Not doing any of that.
Who killed JR?
We had a deal. You were just going to do yes and no questions.
Yeah, we'll get there in a second. And then the one that brings us back home is, did they really plan the Bay of Pigs at Bailey's over coffee? So when you decided back in 1970 with Mom to move to Sanibel, and Sanibel was very different back then, 50-odd years ago. I remember it growing up. There weren't a lot of families here. There were some families. There weren't a lot, not as many as there are today, especially with younger people. The school was K-5. It was just a very different place. There was no bike path, if you can imagine Sanibel without a bike path. Lee County had 100,000 people in it. If you can imagine that. Sanibel, I don't know how many people were living on Sanibel at the time, but 1,000-ish, 1,500?
No, not that many.
Not even that many. So what made you pick Sanibel?
I guess the easy answer to that is that I grew up in a grimy, cold New England manufacturing town in World War II. And I got a glimpse of Southwest Florida in about 1947 as a kid, and it became a dream for me. I said, this is what paradise looks like. Someday I'm going back. I was born in New England. I didn't have a choice. When I had a choice, I said, I'm going to Southwest Florida, and I did. And when I came back and made that choice, Mariel was with me. We'd been married a couple of years. We had 2 children. You were with us. You may not remember. You were rather small. We stayed at what was then the old Cassie Bell. And by the time we left and by the time we got here, the hotel had burned down. And we ended up staying in the laundry room. I'm not kidding. True story. I slept at one end, my wife, our children, and my wife's sister at the other end, all on cots. And we had a wonderful vacation. And thought, this is how life is supposed to be. So in 1970, after I'd been a Cold Warrior for a number of years, I got ill, and I said, where would you go to get your health back? And the answer was quickly, Sanibel. So we came to Sanibel. We were here about 2 minutes and said, where else would you live? And so here we are. All these years later, we never left, and we're not going to. I hope.
I can tell you my siblings and I applaud that decision. It was a wonderful place to grow up. So you could have just retired from public service. You came down here to convalesce. A lot of people come to Sanibel to retire. People get involved. You got really involved. What drew you to public service?
One of the things about Sanibel that was very apparent to us when we moved here was, of course, it's a beautiful paradise. It's, it's a magnificent island offshore in the Gulf of Mexico with the blue waters and the clouds and sunshine, all of that. But really what made the difference was the people, the sense of community here. The pace of life was absolutely fabulous. There was business opportunity to start small businesses, which we did. I had a boat rental business for a while. It was just a quality of life that was not anywhere near as stressful or as puzzling as the life we had been leading. It was a great place to get your health back and begin to understand what really matters in life. And there was no better place to grow up kids. I think you'll agree. It was a safe place to go. We didn't lock our doors. The world happened, and it happened on a sunny beach, and it couldn't have been better. Nobody's going to leave. Suddenly, a dark cloud appeared. And it had been there, and it's sort of moving closer and closer. And that was, maybe we're going to lose some of this. How do you lose paradise? What does that look like? We started thinking about it, and the community leaders started coming together and said, you know, we have the causeway, we're going to have growth. What's it going to look like? Is it going to change the place? And that led to a number of people energizing themselves to find out what were the plans. And the plans turned out to be those 100,000 people you're talking about in Lee County, we're going to live over here, and another 100,000 people were going to come too. And we said, that'll ruin it. And so we sort of felt like we were under attack in those days, and we girded our loins and joined forces and said, okay, how do you deal with growth so that we preserve and protect out here what's the fabulous parts of this wonderful quality of life we had, and how do you do it in a way that honors private property, keeps business going, and lets everybody come to Sanibel who wants to come to Sanibel, and protects all these extraordinary natural resources. So a lot of partners, a lot of stakeholders, a lot of talk, a lot of thinking, but a sense of urgency that we will lose if we don't do something, and we did it, and it turned out to be home rule.
Well, it's worked out very well. And for those of you who were in attendance last week, we got to see at SCCF a discussion of the Sanibel Plan, which is actually the award-winning Sanibel Plan, which is something that you put together, and you did it in a way where you went out and hired some of the best experts in the United States and brought them in and said, hey, help us with this. It's very rare. You were young at the time, so it's very rare a founding father, not that you're not anymore. But
there was a time.
It's rare that a founding father gets to sort of enjoy the fruits of their labor. It's rare a founding father can sort of look back 50 years. So with a 50-year look back, tell us about the Sanibel Plan, what you were trying to do, if there's anything you would have done differently.
Well, let me quickly say this is a collective you. This was community effort. And in those days, we had the Sanibel-Captiva Planning Board, which had been doing a lot of work trying to control the zoning and the growth and what it was going to look like out here. And when we got into the process of what would work, the only real tool we could see that was available that would withstand litigation and would be fair, and we wanted something fair, would be home rule after examining the other opportunities. So we went and did that, and we sort of sat around in a room like this, not quite as glorious, because we didn't have anything like this on Sanibel, but about the size of this stage, let's say. And we said, does anybody here know anything about home rule? So, okay, we got to find somebody who does. So we were relatively smart and went out and found some people who understood the legislative process, what home rule was, how it worked, and what would happen if we actually got home rule, and how we could get a comprehensive plan. And the answer was to get the best possible planners in the world to come and help us do it with the best possible lawyers. And we did. Fred Bosselman from his firm in Chicago, and Wallace McCarr, Robertson Todd. We got Bill Roberts from their firm, and one of the best environmental planning firms in the world. And we got two of the best people to help us do something that had never really been done before. And we did it under Florida legislation, which was also fairly new and untested. So we were really on the cutting edge of trying something that hadn't happened. And I will tell you that we made a lot of promises, we examined a lot of things, but everybody in the community was involved. Everybody had a say-so. It was fully transparent. Nobody was denied or said, go away, we don't like your thinking. Everybody said, okay, you've got an idea, what is it? And we tried to accommodate that, so when we actually put it to the test of the vote and said, what do you think as a community if we go forward and do this? And enough people said, okay, we're interested, we're aware, we understand the problem, we understand the threat, we understand what is at stake for the future. We're going to go out and vote. We did. We had a full, fair vote. People came in and looked at the vote and observed it, counted, and then said, okay, go to it. And when they said go to it, then we had to come up with these guys. And fortunately, we got the best people who spent 2 years doing nothing but talking about comprehensive planning. What should it look like? What should the rules be as we go forward? And it was a 2-year process. And when we were through, nobody was completely happy and nobody was completely unhappy. But it is still the iconic plan, comprehensive land use plan in the world. We've done something that nobody else can do, and it would be a shame to lose it. And I don't think we will, because I think the community spirit is alive to keep it. But I got to emphasize, it was everybody.
Understood. If, not going to let you off the hook totally, if you wanted to change something, what would you change?
What would I change?
Yeah.
I think I would like to see more outdoor dining by the waterfront. There you go. I'm running in the next election.
He's not even running.
No, we talked about that a lot. And the reason we didn't have it was we were scared we were going to set a precedent and create some problems. And yes, we were going to get some good things, but we were going to get more bad things than good things. And that was after a lot of looking at case law and what other communities had done, and said, well, we'll park that over here, and as we go down the road, we'll be able to figure out how to do that better. So it's a work in progress to get that. And the new mayor, God bless you, the old mayor, God bless you, and all the council persons, God bless you. Go to it.
All right. We're going to switch now a little bit. We're going to switch to Captiva,
It's about time.
which some people do think is part of Sanibel. When I was on council, people would call and complain to me, and I'd send them to David, and because that's what you do as a councilman. But Captiva is unincorporated Lee County, which is interesting. And David, would you like to explain a little bit about sort of what that means to Captiva and how you've approached growth over the last 50 years the way we have?
We're an island, but we're not a village, we're not a town, we're not a city. We're part of unincorporated Lee County, and a very small part. I think we're about 1.5 square miles. We have about 1,150 dwelling units, and if you can believe it, we have 278 registered voters. And the latest census had us at about 300. Right, and so that's what we're starting with. And Lee County knows we're there, but we're tiny. And so about 25 years ago, a little later than when you started, about 25 years ago, people were concerned about overdevelopment. And there was a move to incorporate Captiva in the same way that there was a move and successfully incorporated Sanibel. However, when you only have 278 voters and you're only tiny, you start to wonder how you're going to have a government, how you're going to pay for it, who's going to actually run for office. Is it going to be the same person every day, every year? So there was a big group in Captiva that wanted to incorporate, and they hired attorneys and they hired lobbyists, and however, they weren't successful. And then there was another group that wanted to annex to Sanibel. And they were afraid, I think, that they would be the second-class citizen of Sanibel being much larger, so that didn't have a lot of traction. And then there were some people who didn't want to do anything, but then there was the fear we would become, and I don't want to say anything bad about Marco Island, but there was a fear we would become Marco Island. And so at the end of the day, after much controversy, after it became personal at some points, but at the end of the day, a compromise was forged, and they created a Captiva community panel. And I sit on the Captiva community panel with 10 other people from Captiva, business people, residents, and our job is to make recommendations to the county on zoning, on planning, on codes, on ordinances, which we do on a regular basis. And that was the compromise. We don't have our own government, but we're quasi-government, and we're able to make those recommendations. We are Chapter 23 of the Lee County Comprehensive Plan. We have our own part of the Lee County Plan for Captiva. We have our own land development code, Chapter 33, just for Captiva. And we have our own ordinances just for Captiva. People think Captiva is the wild, wild west and that we have no regulations, but it's just not true. We're very proud of our plan, our code, our ordinances. We have, just so you know, we have very strict density rules. We have very strict building heights on Captiva. We have, if we go to central sewer, which we'll talk about later, we have limited sizes of that central sewer. We protect our natural resources. We protect our water quality. We protect our dark skies. We have noise regulations, and we have signage regulations. So whereas everybody talks about Sanibel being regulated, Captiva has the kind of regulations and voluntary compliance that makes it a very special place, and we're very proud of it.
Should be.
Thanks. Thanks very much, David. That helps me a lot, and I think it probably helps a lot of people understand Captiva, who it's sort of a mystery to some of us, but it is beautiful. Then I'm going to take some liberties as host and combine two questions because I think these are sort of redundant. And so Rahm Emanuel, many of you may remember, said once famously or infamously, you never want to let a serious crisis go to waste. So I would consider the hurricane a serious crisis for our islands and our community. And I think if you're going to look on the bright side of it, let's not let it go to waste. So we incorporated 50 years ago, and it was a great opportunity then because we sort of started from scratch to set a foundation of where we were going to be. And over the last 50 years, we've had that opportunity to move forward. Now I think we have another, so we're looking at the next 50 years, another opportunity to set a new foundation, and we can do it a little bit differently because we've got a really mature nonprofit sector now that we did not have then. We've got a city government now that we did not have then, and we've got more citizens and more people who are willing to sort of roll up their sleeves and get to work. So I just want to say, looking forward, working with the nonprofits, working with the business communities, what do you see? How do you see our recovery, and what do you sort of see? How are we going to, make the serious crisis not go to waste?
Well, I think I'm not that cynical anymore about crises in government as Rahm was about the way he said that particular statement, but I do believe that we are at a sea change time, similar to the one we had 100 years ago when agriculture sort of dried up here and because too much salt in the soil after the hurricanes and stuff. And we adapted and we went into new things and we've gone through a wonderful history and now we're at another place. And now we're being forced to look at ourselves again and say, okay, what is it that's wrong about Sanibel? Well, frankly, there's not a whole lot because there's a whole lot of people here and there are not a lot of people leaving most of the time. More people want to come than want to go. So I think we've done an awful lot right. And of course, Mother Nature gets a very big piece of that. But you mentioned the people here. Yes, we have a much broader population basis, which gives us more political clout in one way. And in that population, I have to say, there's a much broader range of talent and expertise and background and experience and wealth that has brought us here. So I don't mean dollars. I mean intellectual wealth has come to our community and broadened us in our conversations very mightily, I think, over the years. So I think that among that group is the leadership that we're all here talking about tonight, and we saw a witness tonight on Callie. I mean, what's the difference between Callie and my leadership? She's 500 years younger. And that is really important, I think, in this day and age. So here we are with more base, as it were, and more to work with in that base. But it goes beyond that. In 1964 or 5 or 6 or so, when we were vacationing here with you, you couldn't find Sanibel on a map, hardly. Nobody knew. It wasn't an international world. Today, brand Sanibel is a global brand. People know it all over the world. I have traveled a lot since 1974 in a lot of different places, and just about everybody these days has heard of, oh, you're from Sanibel. Oh, I love Sanibel. I was there last year. And it's astonishing to me how we've gone from never heard of to, oh, yeah, we're going to have vacation there. We just came back. So I think that brand Sanibel knowledge is out there and is well understood by other people who are making decisions at different government levels, state and federal level, that this is an asset. This is an asset that goes just beyond being another community of 6,000 people or however many people we are actually counting today here. So I feel that is a very strong piece of going forward, because that relationship between the different levels of government with Kevin and his fellow commissioners in the county is critically important, partially because of Captiva, of course, but because the Causeway is owned and operated by the county, and how that works with us and our finances and tax base over the years is going to be very important. Plus, a lot of the challenges that we're talking about at the national level in litigation are serious challenges and things we need to keep our eye on. One of them is the whole question of, is home rule really a good idea? And right now in states, the Commonwealth of Massachusetts and in the state of California and the state of New York, there is an erosion of home rule because government from the top is thought to be best, because when something like COVID comes along, the local guys can't handle it. Well, obviously, that's not the whole story, but that's the argument that's being used successfully in some other places. So home rule as a tool, which is a critical tool to us to be able to do among ourselves and make our own decisions, needs to be guarded. You need to keep your eye on it. You need to keep people thinking about it in Tallahassee. And when you vote, you need to think about that. And when you're talking with the county, you need to say, look, we need these things and this cooperation with the parks and the bridges and so forth and the roads and Captiva, our friends and family up there. All of this has to come together now, and it has to come together at a time when we have two reports that say people who live on barrier islands are living at a greater risk than we thought before, because clearly sea level is rising. The reports say that it is going to rise 5 to 8 feet in the next 5 to 8 inches, in the next 5 to 25 years. Sorry, no. I know it's bad, but it's not that bad. And we have more time. But these are valid reports. They're NOAA reports, and they're reports that people are going to pay attention to. So that means the insurance companies are going to pay attention to them, and that means the people who regulate are going to pay attention to them, and that means we're going to be talking about higher elevations and doing things differently and different kinds of stresses and braces and roof nails and all kinds of things. That's going to have to be worked out in the community patiently and fairly, just as we worked out the comprehensive plan all those years ago, almost 50 years ago. So that's your challenge right now. And we've got the cooperative work and the spirit. You heard it earlier when everybody got up and said, thanks, Holly. Thank God you were here for the hurricane and what you did afterwards. And Richard, thank God for you, because it's going to be fun for the next 2 years, too. All of this shows me that we are alive and well for the new challenges, have the tools if we're smart enough to keep them and use them properly. Long answer, sorry.
That's all right.
When I travel, people ask me where's Sanibel all the time, and I say, I say it's right next to Captiva. They say, oh. Bravo. Captiva's facing a lot of challenges, and I think we're going to need a lot of people to work with us to try to deal with those challenges. I mean, one of them is preemption, and I think that's what you're talking about, home rule. And it's not just the federal government. The state of Florida are passing preemption bills all the time.
Yep.
So, for example, if you wanted to regulate the duration of rentals, Florida now says you can't. It has to be regulated by the state. So local communities cannot regulate duration of rentals, whether it's a week, every day. You can rent once a week, once a day, or in Sanibel, 28 days for a minimal rental. You can't do that anymore. Sanibel's grandfathered, but that will change too if Tallahassee had its way. Sea level rise. We've been told through our vulnerability analysis studies that we just completed that we have to plan for 3.5 feet of flooding over the next 20 years, which means we have to continue with beach renourishment and figure out how to fund that. We have to make the bayside resilient, which is basically at sea level, and we have to figure out how to do that when a lot of that and most of that is private property. We may have to raise some roads. We're going to need help doing that. We're going to have to connect to the Sanibel sewer system so that we can not have wastewater in our streets when we have flooding. And that's a very complicated process for both Sanibel and Captiva. We've been working very closely with the city of Sanibel. Lee County has been helping us with funding, and we hope we can get this thing done over the next couple of years. And with Richard and Holly working with us, I think this is going to happen, and that's very important. We have to maintain our plan. We have to maintain our ordinances. A lot of people in Lee County believe one size should fit all. And that's another problem, just not only preemption, but one size fits all. It's much easier to manage a county if everybody's got the same rules. But barrier islands are very different with very special needs, so we have to make sure that we do have that ability to have our own rules and regulation. And we have to have a good relationship with the county. We have a wonderful relationship with our District 1 Commissioner, Kevin Ruane, on the Board of County Commissioners. But you have to institutionalize that. Kevin's not going to be around forever. And we don't know who the Board of County Commissioners are going to be in the future, whether they'll even understand or recognize the value of Captiva. So this is something we have to worry about. And in fact, if we can't get that cooperation, I'm sure, and I hope this is not going to happen, but I'm sure we'll hear about incorporation again. Oh, yeah. Those things will happen. And these are very complicated issues that we have to deal with. And the most important thing, I believe, on Captiva, just to add something, is making sure we have a community. Sanibel, but even more so Captiva, is a rental vacation community. And it's a balance between the businesses, the rental tourist community, and the residences. And you have to keep that balance. If you lose that community and you become a vacation island solely, or a rental island solely, and you don't have people living there 7 months of the year or all year who have a real interest and a stake in that community, you're going to lose all the value of that community. You're going to lose people who are going to care about the ordinances or the plan or the codes or the building heights or any of those things. And Captiva can quickly change, just like Sanibel can quickly change. And so it's very important that we have people living on Captiva who love Captiva and want to stay there. So for all of you out there who don't know where you're going to live or may want to be moving, I encourage you. I encourage you to look to a Captiva, because we need people who want to live there and be part of our community. It's really important. Remember, we only have 278 registered voters, so we need more. So. And the other thing is, I don't know whether you know this, are we an enclave, are we an exclave? I mean, to get to Captiva, you have to go through a foreign country, which is Sanibel. And that's pretty cool. So anyway, look at Captiva if you're looking to buy.
That's shameless poaching.
You're a tremendous advocate. Thank you. So if the story of our islands is a book that's written in 50-year chapters, which it sort of seems to have been, start thinking about what's the title of the next chapter, because my guess is, and it's a pretty good guess I'm guessing, is that none of us are going to be sitting on this stage in 2073 in 50 years from now. I'll put money on that. So what would we like those people who are sitting on the stage in 50 years from now to be talking about? What do you think their accomplishments are going to be, and what would you name this next chapter?
You. Well, first of all, in 50 years from now, I hope this stage would be above water. That would be my first thought. And I don't know whether or not I have the wisdom to think what Mother Nature is going to do for the next 50 years, because I can tell you the last 50 years ago, when we were talking about what Mother Nature could do to Sanibel, did not involve Ian at all. So I'm not going to predict the forces of Mother Nature for the next 50 years. But I do feel that the great gift that we have in Sanibel, that has given us this extraordinary and unique Barrier Island community, and the wonderful people who have recognized it and have created this sense of Sanibel, the sense of Sanibel-Captiva, is something that is not going to be lost because it's too great a treasure. And I seriously do not think it will disappear no matter what the sea level is. And I guess the way I'd simplify it is, if I were still around in 50 years, this place would still be home because it's home now.
Well said.
I think the key to the future will be resilience. And I think Sanibel and Captiva, given the past couple of years, are going to work very, very closely to be resilient together. We're going to have joint projects. We're going to work hand in hand. It's some people think it's one island. It's really two, but I think we think of ourselves as one island on a lot of these resiliency questions. And I think if I would title the next chapter, I would call it how Sanibel and Captiva stayed true to itself and became more resilient. Yes.
I would also point out there's historical evidence that we might actually be one island. We have been before.
I actually looked up that because people were saying a hurricane created Captiva.
1926, redfish. No, that was Upper Captiva.
Back in 1400, there were two islands.
There's so many good stories. It would be really a shame to ruin the myths that are out there.
Absolutely. Well, we will continue this in 50 years, come back. And in the meantime, thank you both very much for your insights.
Yeah. Thank you. Can I take a point of privilege, please, and say thank you to everybody here, because I assure you, nothing could be more energizing for me than to see, after all that we've gone through collectively since Ian and this community and the history of what's happened in the years, to see the spirit, the people out there in the nonprofits, the volunteers, the people just coming and doing the hard work of rebuilding. I will tell you, it is a wonderful gift for an old man, and I thank you.
Jane Majeski, who's been the chair of the class of 22 who's put on this thing, said to me yesterday, nothing really would have happened without Dolly Farrell. We hired Dolly Farrell. The board was bold enough to say, I think we should hire an executive director of some substance. There are all kinds of opportunities around. Dolly's first day on the job was October 3rd. Oh, goodness. She gave up a career at FGCU and this nice, stable place to come to an entrepreneurial little organization on Sanibel and Captiva. So you have to admire her. I did say, Dolly, take the week off and get your life together. This is a crazy time to be doing this, but she is an angel for me, for our organization. As you get to know her, I think you'll agree she's going to become an angel for these islands that we inhabit together. She's going to wrap up the program, but thank her as she comes out for everything she's done for tonight.
Thank you, Chip, and thank you to all of you for the warm welcome over the last 6 months. That's true. My first day was October 3rd. They did give me the week off to clean up my house and my in-laws' home, and I really do appreciate that. But it has been amazing. I told my husband I wanted a challenge. I didn't know it was going to be a Cat 4, possibly Cat 5 hurricane that would forever change my life and the life of everyone that I was planning to work with. But one of those highlights has been working with the nonprofit. Aren't they awesome? They are just so amazing. And I am so humble to represent them for you this evening. And I want to get you out those doors so you can go and meet them again and enjoy some wine and refreshments. But I am honored to close this program so you can go meet these superheroes. Match your interests, your skills, and your abilities with the needs of the community. And I want to challenge you here tonight to go visit with some organization that you never would have before. We are in different times. I think someone from the leadership class, it might have been Jane, said, you know, I never would have visited a particular organization till she did the leadership class. So do that today. Challenge yourself, meet your neighbor tomorrow and tell them what you learned today. Possibly take a nonprofit directory with you out the door. So with that, I just want to close and say thank you to our leadership class. Thank you to our donors, our supporters, and our benefactors that are here today. Thank you to all of you who've given so much. Like Jeff said, drywall, food, maybe a helping hand, maybe it was a shoulder to cry on. Tonight's program set the stage, and now would you please continue to make those connections, find inspiration with these incredible individuals that represent our nonprofit community. Thank you very much.